Okay.
Now we're live. So, hello everyone. My name is Kevin O'Brien, and I am delighted to introduce the last of the season, the last webinar of the season, Social Media Analytics Around COVID-19, a case study of misinformation. I'm also delighted to be joined by my colleague, Urja Pawar, who's joining us from India. And I'm delighted to introduce the speaker tonight, Arjumand Younus from UCD. Thank you for joining us. We won't be having any webinars next week, but we will probably be coming back after the Easter. Probably, I think it's the first one due back is Monday, April the 12th, with the Eswatini or user group presenting work on COVID. If you're watching us live on YouTube, please say hello. Tell us where you're from, where you're joining us from. And also shout out to all the other R user groups around the world who join in. We also like to thank our sponsors, Jumping Rivers, jumpingrivers.com. They are a training consultancy company, data science and training company based in the northeast of England, in Newcastle upon Tyne. And we're grateful for their ongoing support for our events and Saturdays and our user groups and so on all around the world. Finally, if you'd like to present a talk in the future, please get in contact with us. We'd love to sort of facilitate you. We are particularly interested in talks surrounding this subject matter, social media analytics, political speech, and so on. We feel it's a very important body of work. Just as a quick remark, you may see some Python here. I think I'll sort of let Arjumand confirm that, but you know, the concept is what we're going for here. So I'll leave it over to you, Arjumand. Let you take over there and get cracking. I'll go mute and let you work away. Thank you.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. Oops. Wait. I stopped the presentation. Sorry. Wait. I'll start again because somehow okay. My screen froze all of a sudden. Sorry about that. Okay, so thank you, Kevin, for the nice introduction. Well, I'm in UCD and I'm working as a postdoc there. Now, postdoc is something like a transition career after a PhD and between a lecturer. So you're like on temporary 2-year, 3-year contracts, but you're working on research and also teaching, but with industry partners. So it's kind of like somewhere in the middle between industry and academia. And a few other things I've been involved in. Recently, I've been involved with Women in Research Ireland, and they're basically an advocacy not-for-profit who advocate for more women in Ireland's academic and research sector, because that's a huge gap in Ireland. The men to women ratio in research is very, very bad. It's bad in other fields too, but the situation in academia is pretty bad. Then there's also Women in Machine Learning and Data Science, and I'm part of the Dublin chapter, one of the co-founders with my another colleague of mine in UCD. So basically what we're working on is the whole idea of women in machine learning and data sciences had to have, you know, this worldwide organization to promote women who are doing machine learning and data science using different languages. It can be Python, it can be R, and we organize events in collaboration with each other, sometimes separately, and meetups for a year. And the whole idea when the Dublin chapter was launched it was just before COVID when we started it, and we were pretty excited about it. It was last year, January, and we were thinking of events, and most of our events, we thought to gear it towards industry so that we can give something tangible to those who will give a talk, or, you know, invite those who can, you know, get some jobs for those who are looking for them, because getting employed after a PhD or after a postdoc is a huge headache for anyone in academia, because we have these temporary short-term contracts and they keep on expiring. So this was the whole idea, but unfortunately COVID delayed everything. And Still, we have not had our launch, which we hope to have soon this year, because I don't think COVID is going away anytime soon. Or at least people had hope with the vaccinations, but their speed is very slow in Europe, unfortunately. So let's see how that goes. Anyways, this was a project from last year, but it's still ongoing. Social media analytics around COVID 19, a case study of misinformation. I'll explain each of these terms as I go on. So I already talked about myself, so I can skip this slide. This talk is organized as follows. I'll first talk a little bit about COVID 19. I don't need to talk about it much already because people are so sick of it now, but still I'll give short introduction, and then what is social media analytics, what is misinformation, why it's important in the context of COVID-19, and some challenges that came out of it due to social media and COVID-19 and the whole misinformation phenomena. And then I'll explain one of the projects that we've been doing. Mainly all the code was done in Python, but more recently I have discovered that a lot of the stuff, like Keras, TensorFlow, all of this, there is support for it in R, and I'll go a little bit through that as well for those interested. Okay, so we all know how it all happened. We all remember it. It's been more than a year now. It was March 13 last year when the lockdown started in Ireland, and coronavirus was declared as a pandemic by World Health Organization. And at that point everybody was like, oh, lockdown, few weeks, yeah, we can do this, let's flatten the curve. And people were like, yeah, let's be a hero by staying home and all. That has changed around now. Everybody is sick of it, is tired of it. We want to go out, want to have our normal life back. I have not been to my home country for more than a year. I haven't seen my sisters, my mother in a long time, but it is what it is. Anyways, so work from home became the new normal. This I just added as a joke at that point, that it's normal people would be crying, but programmers are already used to work, but even programmers are tired now. Anyways, so yeah, in all of this, one positive, however, is these online conferences, these webinars, even one you're attending right now. When you have to organize physical meetups, you've got a lot of logistics to deal with, like room bookings, getting people at one place, their travel arrangements, and there's a lot of cost involved. But with everything moving online, there's this, what you can call the digital divide has been reduced. And somebody who cannot go to a lot of conference, someone like me, like I've been attending a lot of online conferences from last year and a lot of workshops. And while it's frustrating from one end, there is a bright side to it, which is that it has been fun and a great learning experience because of so much knowledge being in the form of webinars. Zoom has been a really has been a game changer in all of this. So similarly, there was this Net COVID workshop organized last year. I'm pretty sure they will do something this year as well. It was run by University of Maryland Research Group, Computation and Mathematics for Biological Networks. If you follow their website, they're quite a cool research group, and they keep on organizing these events, and most of them have now moved online. I'm pretty sure this year they are going to do something too. I might not have time this year, but if I would highly recommend it, because from the point of view of network epidemiology and how infections work, how everything spreads, they combine people from physics, from biology, from computer science. And they gave there were talks on how why it's important to stay at home, what's R not, what is infectious spread, SIS models of disease spread and everything. So it was pretty enlightening as a computer scientist to learn how all these models, how all the maths behind it works, and how computer scientists are so important in creating some of the visualizations of all of this. So I'd highly recommend it for somebody who wants to go interdisciplinary and learn about infectious disease modeling, because this is what this group mostly works on. So they had this online workshop of 4 weeks, and it was 4 tutorial talks and followed by a group project. And postdocs, professors, industry guys, all from all over the world joined in and made teams. So we were a 7 people team of PhD students, one professor, myself, a postdoc, and it was quite fun. They still have the tutorials and the project titles and talks from last year up. You can go browse on this page. Some of them already also uploaded their codes on GitHub. You can email the person people who participated in the group projects, and they'll be happy to give you access to the code and on GitHub and all. So what is social media analytics about? Social media analytics is basically studying social media data through fields in computer science, subfields of computer science called network analysis, text mining, natural language processing, different areas. This was my PhD topic as well. I proposed a model of improving personalization in web search engines using Twitter data, how Twitter can be used to model your profiles, and in turn take that into account when you issue a search query. So some of the works in this domain are customer review analysis. Like we have these all of these reviews these days on Yelp, on Foursquare, all of these different websites. And to be honest, even restaurants or superstores, or they're scared if you post a negative review online, because the whole concept of virality of something going through many hops, uh, it could land your business in big trouble. So there's a whole field around it that evolved called customer review analysis. Then during elections, Obama started it in to 2016, or before, even before that, when in 2012 election of US, data scientists began to gather around uh, y- um, predicting the outcome of US elections, and it has become an active area of research now. uh, and from that stemmed out studying, applying textual analysis to lots of data from gathered from Twitter, and not just for election outcomes analysis, but also studying the election trolling, how people troll each other during elections, how polarization spreads in the society. So then there's public health prediction. There's some very active researchers who are trying to predict whether or not you're depressed from your tweets, from your Facebook posts. So this is just some of the examples of social media analytics and what kind of field it is. A lot of people don't know about it, and it has applications in biology, in medicine, like I said, about depression detection, in marketing, in political science. So it's an interdisciplinary area, uh, and highly active with researchers from. So all you need is some text data, some tweets, and you apply some nice, cool text mining over it. What is text mining? Text mining is just getting some insights from text data, counting the number of times a word would occur, uh, counting which one is the most frequent one. If I have this particular word, what are the chances that a word, like, let's say, if I have a tweet, and I tweet a lot about, let's say, women, then is there a high chance that I would tweet on Women's Day on March 8th? Yes or no? So these are the kinds of stuff that text mining can do and help you solve. And this is what is my major area of research. However, there is also some problems of social media. Like we all know that in elections, when Trump won, it gave birth to a whole new thing called fake news. And every other day, Trump would be tweeting about fake news and stuff. And social media gives a lot of power to every user. And so when there's power, people do kind of become irresponsible, and everyone becomes a fake news spreader or a journalist without even verifying the info. So this leads to misleading information on many topics. There are a number of examples even now. uh, Something around the AstraZeneca vaccine last week or a week before that, uh, there was some news about blood clots being found in some people that were vaccinated in Norway, and the anti-vaxxers began tweeting in massive numbers that AstraZeneca vaccine is no good, and COVID-19 vaccines are, you know, they have lots and lots of side effects, and the government is trying to put chips in you, like we said, and all. So the anti-vaxxers were calling it a win and all. So this is a huge challenge in the digital age of tackling this fake news phenomena, because it's not that just news just stays on Twitter or it stays on social media. It spreads and spreads, and it creates huge problems in society. Like in, for example, the case of when Joe Biden was about to assume presidency, we saw how there was a big chaos in USA, and it almost led to a coup or something, and it was a scary thing. So that's why these things have to be detected, and political scientists are very actively working in this area in collaboration with computer scientists, of course, because it's text data, it can be mined with the computer. So uh, that's why it has given to birth of a whole area where we detect misinformation, where we detect fake news, and there are even lots of challenges around it. So when COVID-19 started, similar phenomena of fake news being spread was observed, and roughly one third of social media users in the United States reported that they saw some false or misleading information about the virus. Some of the popular news that were related to it, that it's a bioengineered virus, maybe USA manufactured it and China manufactured it, and it's still going on. uh, you must have heard of the Atlanta shootings just recently, where Chinese people were killed, and it's believed to have relationship with the COVID 19, because some people are really angry at China, especially in the USA, that you made the world a mess because of your manufactured virus. So some guy went about killing Chinese people in USA. So you see the kind of effects that fake news spreading can have on society. It's not, so use social media very responsibly. And if you see people not using it responsibly, then talk to computer scientists about it. Think of solutions around it. It's something that you can call in, that would come in social enterprise. You can even build a startup around it, and it would be also a service to society. So then people also thought that maybe it's a population control scheme. People want to kill the old people. It's a way to kill old people because the virus is mostly attacking old people. Then 5G rumors have been around for a long time, even before COVID-19. And the anti-vaxxers too, they've been against this MMR vaccine, which is very important for infants. That has been the target of anti-vaxxers from a long, long time. So COVID-19 helped serve as a breeding ground for all these misinformation people, and it was quite tricky and quite challenging to counter all these false narratives. So this project that I talked about, what my team chose was using understanding 5G narratives around COVID-19 and how they evolved during the course of the virus. So we had uh, like I said, these 5G narratives have existed as early as 2016 when this all started, and there have been a variety of conspiracy theories around it. And because disinformation campaigns are something that are launched from time to time, it's not that they just go in one burst. They come up again and again and again in bursts. So same was the case for 5G. But when COVID-19 started, the conspiracy theories around 5G and COVID-19 spread like fire. Even celebrities and public figures began tweeting about these, and so it was not no longer just a obscure fringe theory, but it became a mainstream narrative. So much that there were you may remember that in April 2020 there were arson attacks in UK on 5G towers, and telecom workers were attacked. Such was the severity of this 5G rumor. So we decided to see how the narrative is evolving on social media and how it's linked to the news data. So we collected some tweets from the decahose, and we had sample of 10% of tweets. So we filtered out those tweets that contain the string 5G using word boundaries and all. And our data set is from January 1 to April 15. We now have up till May 30. So this work is still an ongoing work. At first, we decided to mine all tweets in all of the languages, but as you can see from this graph, most of the tweets are in English. Nearly all of the tweets were in English with the language tag, so we restricted ourselves to English tweets. And there were 500,000 tweets, and from 300,000 users. That's a big number, as you can see. So One method that we use for such analysis within natural language processing or text mining was word embeddings. So, as the name suggests, embeddings are a very hot theme in computer science these days. As the name suggests, it embeds something, some entity, some function into a vector of real numbers. So, what happens is that suppose you have a huge text corpus. Each word in that text corpus or in that text data would be mapped to a vector of, let's say, 50 dimensions. The dimensions you can choose use in your code, but mostly 50 or 128 or something like that is chosen as a number. And then, with vector operations, finding similarity is quite easy using cosine similarity function. And with that, you can do some very cool stuff. So it's basically a feature learning technique in natural language processing where you map words from vocabulary into vectors of real numbers. And the whole idea of word embeddings is that uh, a word is known, like we say that a person is known by the company he keeps. Similarly, a word is known by the company of that word. So whatever a word is, the surrounding words would have the similar meaning. And this whole idea is incorporated into a neural net with skip-gram architecture. And you are trying to feed a word into that neural net and predicting what would be the context words. That's how the word embeddings work. And in doing that, the words are transformed to vectors, and the vectors are fed into the neural net, and you use negative sampling. Like it would be too much computationally inefficient to do it to predict 5 words around every word. So what you do is you try to predict those words that are not occurring to predict the words that are occurring. This is the skip-gram negative sampling architecture. I'm not going into too much technical details. Well, I think it was already a technical detail, but the good thing is, without understanding the whole architecture and the maths behind it, you can easily import these functions in Python or R, as I'll show in the code snippet. So anyways, back to the project on 5G and COVID-19. uh, when uh, WHO declared COVID-19 as a pandemic, there was a sudden spike in the mention of 5G in the tweets around this time period in March. So, and also they peaked again in early April because there were reports of cell tower arson attacks and harassment of telecom workers. So, and also if you see the hashtags, how they evolved from January when the pandemic had not been declared to April, you see that around 5G tweets, a lot of the top hashtags were on COVID-19 and coronavirus, which shows a dangerous phenomena of misinformation uh, being spread. So these are some TSNE graphs. TSNE is a cool technique. So like I said, the problem, well, not exactly a problem. The word embeddings dimension is 50. So you cannot do any sort of visualization on it in a human readable format. So there's a technique, a dimensionality reduction technique, which can reduce the vector of 50 to 2 dimensions, and you can plot it across an X and Y axis to see what's happening. So that's what we did for clustering the tweets and the words, the vectors that we obtained from training words over our corpus and getting the word embeddings. And you can see that in Feb 2020, the some interesting words were emerging in the tweets, like innovation, services, data encryption, deceiving. Deceiving was there, but not so strong. So mostly the in our 5G tweets, the mentions of innovation, services, data, things like this were prominent. But when come April and the whole narrative changed and we got corona, conspiracy, risk, psychopaths, and attack, and these are the clusters that formed in our 5G tweets. So it's like the tweets underwent a 180-degree turn, with most of the 5G tweets talking about corona and how it's linked. 5G is linked to COVID-19. So you can actually see this, visualize this using word embeddings, and it's a very cool technique if you want to give some evidence of how information is being manipulated on social media. So this is a heat map in January of 2020, you can see that 5G would be the odd one out in startup, innovation, phone, and tech. They are similar, and 5G is not. But for in March 2020, innovation is the odd one out, and 5G and COVID are pretty similar heat maps, which is also alarming. So, if you want to do some of your own analysis around it, there's a publicly available data set on these tweets with tweet IDs. All you need is a publicly available crawler for tweet IDs, and Twitter itself provides access. If you have the tweet IDs, they give you an API to crawl those tweets. Of course, if they're not deleted, because if they are deleted, then the Twitter terms of service says that you cannot have it anymore. But still, a lot of them would be available. So this data set you can download from this place. And then uh, now I'm still working on this project. I've moved on to dynamic word embeddings. The difference between the simple word embeddings and the dynamic word embeddings is that dynamic word embeddings study the temporal evolution in a word's history. Like, for example, if you pick up articles from before the 21st century, like 1800s or 1900s, you would see that gay was used more in the context of cheerful, happy, but now it's used in a completely different context in news articles. So dynamic word embeddings can show these kind of temporal evolution of words. And I also have a news data set for that period, uh, from a startup company that they released for free, and I'll do some text correlation analysis with that data set. So yeah, this is it for this talk, but I'm gonna show you some R code to get an idea of what are the libraries that you can use to actually work on these embeddings and stuff. So this is the main library. Um, Unfortunately, I cannot show you my code running because I don't have GPU machine right now. We poor academics have access to a GPU machine, but it's shared across our whole research group. And I just checked before this talk, it was busy. Someone else was using the GPUs and my code kept crashing. Otherwise, I would have shown you. But anyways, so if you just call these libraries, these are for string manipulation, and you read those strings and they convert it into chunks and tokenization and all, and you have text tokens. And then this one here, the Keras one, is the one that has the word embeddings, and you can use it to write your own skipgram generator and the window size and the words in the context. And this is basically the embedding size means the vector size. So this is example, if you want this code, I can tweet about it from the YR community, and Kevin can retweet this code. So basically, yeah, this is a Find Foods data set of reviews on some restaurants. And when all this model will be trained and run, what happens is that you can find some similar words. Like if you run this code, some words similar to delicious using the vectors are emerged, and one with the highest cosine similarity would be tasty, wonderful, amazing, and yummy. So you can see that what kind of a technique this is and what kind of stuff can be done with text analytics and social media data. And you can think of some of your own ideas around COVID-19 social media analytics. So that's it for my talk. Thank you.
Great stuff. Thanks very much. So, the if you want to join us, or ask questions, you can ask us on the YouTube chat. I just actually to start off actually with a few myself. Um, First off, actually, one thing actually I just would sort of go back to is Deca hose. Just tell us a little about Deca hose there.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, some academic researchers have access to this fire hose, and some have access to this Deca hose, which is 10% of whole tweets on the public streaming API. So the research group that was involved in this project was from Vermont, and they've access to this Deca hose, and they crawl tweets on a regular basis. It's the research group of Peter Dodds. You might have heard the name. It's a very famous name of a computer science professor in UVM. and he primarily works in network science. So this guy helped us get the tweets from the Deca because his research group in the US has access to it.
Good stuff. The main way you sort of would approach this in practice would have been using Python. Just, I actually sort of was, you've focused mostly on R here, but just actually talk us through your Python workflow for this,
Okay.
GenSim and all that.
The first code was written to get the tweets from the Deca in Python, because Python has a lot of APIs for, getting the Deca and a lot of code is easy to write from there. And then we set up Jupyter notebooks for the hashtag analysis, counting the frequencies and all, and then setting up the word embedding stuff and all.
Okay.
So, yeah, a
Uh,
lot of.
just actually out of curiosity, did you attempt to use the Twitter API directly, or is it through Deca that you got the data?
We used it because if I use directly, at that point, Twitter did not announce its academic research support for everyone. Only
Okay.
few universities had a special access to it. So if I would have done through the API, I would only get access to 2% of the Firehose,
Okay.
which
Yeah.
is not
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah. Just as a remark for everyone that the one of the evangelists, sorry, one of the developer advocates for Twitter is actually has given a talk previously for Suheen Parak, and I believe that they're expanding out that sort of what they are making available to academic research in the near future. So just a quick question, actually. So, what sort of building blocks would you have used for your analysis, like in terms of graphics, natural language processing, that sort of stuff?
Okay, so the most important API would be some tokenization library. I use PyTorch, so that already has support for all of this tokenization and counting word counts, etc. And then there's a pre-trained vectors, word embedding, word2vec model by Google. They released it back in 2014 or 2015 somewhere. So that's the main building block. It's all available on their website, and you just have to figure it out to, well, actually, no, that code is not here right now, but I can share it later on. So yeah, PyTorch is the main thing that I used, and also the Word2Vec library by Google, and
Mm.
GenSim, which is an important library, a text library in Python, has word embeddings within it.
Okay, that's a very interesting one to look at. That's GENSIM.
Yeah, GENSIM,
Yeah,
GenSim.
yeah, that's quite well known in the Python community. Just out of curiosity, what sort of drew you into this line of work, this line of research? I think it was sort of the UCD, that was a research topic they were working on anyway. Was that the case, or was it a personal interest of yours?
This particular project was a personal interest because I'm mainly involved with the data-driven agriculture project now. So a lot of the work I'm doing on text mining is mostly from my personal interest. But before this, in UCD as a postdoc, I was working with the recommender systems group. And at some point, I might go back to, natural language processing because that's the area I really love, working with
Mm.
text data. And there's a lot of text out there and a lot of insights that can be derived from it. I'm
Yep,
still actively looking for an NLP position or something
that's
that would
interesting.
involve
Yeah.
working with text data.
Yeah, no, that's actually interesting because that's a very rich line of work. I believe that there's a lot of social media analytics
Yeah.
out there. So if you were to talk to sort of give somebody some recommendations about how to get started in that uh, line of research, like a career young data scientist, like recapping a couple of the packages you mentioned already, how would you tell them to get started in that? Or
Okay, first I tell them to start with Python, learn a little bit of Python, and then move on to GenSim and NLTK.
okay,
NLTK is the very basic one, word counts, POS tagging. The basic stuff in NLPOS is part of speech tagging, how many adjectives in a sentence, how many verbs, how many nouns, and all.
yeah,
So, all of that stuff, uh, which also the traditional works in NLP used a lot of features built upon POS tags, named entity recognition. All of that is in NLTK. And then there's also Stanford, a lot of academic groups, especially Stanford NLP group by Dan Jurafsky and Christopher Manning in Stanford. Keep on releasing APIs from time to time. Mostly they work in Java, but everything has a Python plugin on their website.
Good stuff. Just to confirm, POS stands for parts of speech. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think you might have
part of
said
speech.
that, but I
Yeah.
just just sort of. Now, just actually, you sort of looking here at COVID and 5G. Have you sort of seen any sort of other parallel types of research that would have been very interesting?
I saw
Like
nothing on COVID and 5G so far. A lot of work has been done on studying social media around COVID, but nothing on, especially
okay,
in relation to 5G.
yeah, okay. No, it's just like actually just to sort of to broaden that out, like hate speech or anything like that, or like
More recently, that would be the case, especially after the Atlanta shootings. But the data set that I have, it's from last year. So,
okay,
no. Yeah.
yeah, it probably takes a while to collect up the data.
Yeah.
That'd be fair to say, yeah.
And you cannot predict that something is going to happen today. That's
Yeah.
why these academic groups are, keeping their Twitter deca hoses and running up and running all the time. So they always have access to some of the tweets. Like it's kind of like a streaming service, and they're
Hmm.
always downloading the data. A lot, but
That
not
must be a
every
phenomenal amount of data each day. Like,
yeah, and not every academic group can afford it, because in my case we didn't have a server for a long time. So even if we do download the data, where would we keep it?
mm, yeah,
Some
this is very interesting.
there is
Okay.
this whole rich gets richer phenomena in academia too. So the bigger research groups and the highly funded ones can afford these things, but someone who's working in a smaller group like myself would have some resource constraints. That's why the beauty of this whole initiative that the network epidemiology workshop did was combining big groups with the small groups, and it was a lot of fun. Even there were people from developing countries, and they worked with the uh, tech gurus and the professors from the big academic institutions of USA, and they learned a lot.
Mm, good stuff. Yeah. Just actually, in addition to, have there sort of been like sort of applications? Have you seen any applications like regarding agriculture or anything like that, or food or weather or health, like more general welfare, health science applications? Or
Like the depression one.
oh, okay, yeah, go with the depression one. Just tell us a bit more about that.
uh, that's not my work. There is a Microsoft researcher, Munnam D. Chaudhry. You can follow her on Twitter. She has worked a lot on this. She has now moved from Microsoft Research to, I think she teaches in University of Washington now. So even now, she's writing proposals on, how social media data can be used to improve mental health services and all.
Mm,
Even there are chatbots on mental health counseling and all. So all this kind of work would involve NLP, and it's a practical application. Then in agriculture, I saw some works. Well, that was just one work I saw so far, but my PI was not impressed. It was, using tweets by farmers and agronomists to detect how growing seasons are going.
okay,
When, yeah,
tough one.
yeah.
Good stuff. Just Great. So, sorry, I'm just coughing here. Just actually sort of switching topic here. Can we sort of like you just actually mentioned at the start about the lockdown. How's that been going for you? Like just sort of
The second,
switching it to more to questions more about yourself now.
okay, that's fine. Uh, the first one was pretty bad last year because of no childcare, and everything thrown upon us all of a sudden. And I have two kids, age 6 and 3. Back then they were 5 and 2, so they had we had two birthdays in lockdown. uh, they were not so bad.
Mm,
It's hard to explain to the kids that why you cannot have parties, why you cannot have your friends over, but they've understood now. They're adjusting to it. But with the second one, when the schools closed in January of this year, nobody was expecting it. We were all, schools had started from September, and we were thrown into a bit of a panic mode, because already my kid is in junior infants. Last year, she missed out a lot. And now this time I was worried. So I had to take a break from work to teach her to, do her online classes and all. But she's caught up well on reading and all. And now schools are back. That's a relief. And their creche didn't close, because it's a very small setup my kids go to. And even though I'm not, well, I classify myself as an essential worker. I don't know, some people might not. But anyways, so the creche was open, and this lockdown wasn't so hard as the previous one for me.
Yeah, sorry, just actually sort of to remark that Urja has lost her internet connection. So, but like she's on the chat there. So I'll just direct some questions. Do you have any experience in NLP in languages other than English? Are the tools you're using applicable in other languages? That's from Gabs.
No, not exactly, but uh, these days I am working with a PhD student who is interested in Arabic NLP. So not now, but maybe in the near future, I might, start working on that area.
Would it be fair? I just actually out of curiosity, that's a very good line of questioning. When I look at Twitter, I see mostly English language tweets, even by people who would not be using English as their first language normally. Would it be fair to say that English is nearly absolutely dominant 90% of social media analytics, or is it just my echo chamber?
No, that's correct. And that's also part of the digital divide problem, because the low resource languages, as we call it, the other languages are called low resource languages, because for languages we need training data. So we have lots and lots of training data for English, for the part of speech taggers, for the named entity recognition. So for English, the field has moved on a lot, but for the other languages not so much, and that is a huge problem.
I think would that be compounded by the fact it's a different language and also a different script set? Would that be
Yes.
fair to say?
Yes. Yes.
So the problems would probably not be so pronounced with Spanish, but for like it's
Not so much, because there are a lot of research groups working for Spanish.
yeah.
Brazil, in uh, you would say a lot of areas in South America, and even Spain in Europe. There's this whole conference CLAY, which is Cross-Lingual Evaluation Forum, uh, and they have different challenges around different languages, and it's quite fun. So
Mm,
for the European languages, even German, Portuguese, Spanish, it's not the problem is not that much pronounced. But for languages, especially language Hindi, Urdu is my language from Pakistan. So yeah, these languages are suffering a lot, and
mm,
there
mm,
is like just two or three research groups working on these languages all over the world.
mm. That's it. So just actually, Urja is just on the chat there. Hi, Arjumand. Apologies, I'm unable to connect back. Thanks for the talk. I'm interested in knowing your take on explainable AI to improve the recommendation models, perhaps by identifying sources of fake or negative views. As explainable AI is currently a bit hyped, it will be interesting to see its applications in fake news spread prevention.
Some academic groups are already working on that line, and I wouldn't say that academic explainable AI is hyped, because with the GDPR and all of the stuff moving to, especially let's say banking sector, finance sector, and everything moving to automated models and ML models, machine learning models, you would see a lot of explainable AI, especially in Europe in the future. So even if the people in industry have not caught up on that yet, they will have to soon.
Mm,
So,
good
and
stuff.
that's a very good idea of, using sources to explain the fake news phenomena. And there are already some papers that I can tell you on that from the top of my head.
Now, just actually, you mentioned the question of polarization. Is that how have you been charting the course of that? I believe that other researchers have been sort of like trying to map polarization through social media,
Yeah.
and that what's the current line of research there? Political polarization.
Mostly it's originating from network science groups, community detection, dividing them into two groups and see which one is a more prominent. Are they even communicating with each other? Are they retweeting each other? Are they replying to each other? Is the conversation shifting at some point? So these are the kinds of areas or questions they are solving at the moment.
Good stuff. So just switching back to yourself again, actually, you're involved in the. I'll just keep an eye out for questions there, but you're involved in Women in Machine Learning and Data Science Dublin. You're the chapter lead for Dublin, I believe.
Yeah.
Just tell us a bit about that organization, actually, because in the R world we'd be very familiar with R ladies, but we probably would be less familiar with Wimel DS. I believe that's how you
Yeah.
verbalize it.
So this was started from New York City, or maybe from San Francisco or somewhere in the US, where the whole idea was because in the tech sector, especially in machine learning and data science, there are just one or two, there were just one or two women in all the tech startups. So they kind of felt like, bossed around by the boys and all. So, and in every meetup they would go, there would be a huge chunk of the male speakers, and which is not bad, but there was a need for, this whole sister bonding in this community. So that's how someone came with the idea of setting up this uh, group in just like the R community.
Yeah.
And so someone started it and it became a regular thing. They had regular meetups and regular talks and all. And some now they even have jobs advertised, and uh, a huge growing community. And there are lots and lots of women in machine learning and data science in the US now.
Mm.
So they decided to take it all across Europe and all across Asia. And people, all you do is if you want to start your own chapter, let's say someone from Galway wants to start a chapter, you just write to them, the main women LDS, and they have a website set up. You write to the main lead, who I think is based in Paris or New York these days, and she'll get back to you with a form, and you need three or more people with you, and who are
Good stuff.
like-minded and who would like to organize events around these themes and getting speakers and all, and you're all good to go.
Good stuff. I noticed that there's chapters all around the world. I was actually in contact with the one in Mongolia, also Mauritius, Kinshasa, Dublin, Accra, loads of places. It's actually fantastic. There's quite a few in Spain as well, in Galicia. But I believe that the timing has not been very fortunate in your case, that you set up the chapter very recently.
Oh yeah, very, very unfortunate. Because the other co-founder who was very enthusiastic about all of that, she also got thrown into panic mode because of childcare. Childcare is a huge issue for women, and unfortunately, men don't realize its severity
Mm.
because, well, it's not to do with them. Unfortunately, even if my husband is outside taking care of the kids, still my kids would run up to me even for a glass of water. I don't know what is it with them that they just want mommy.
That's
But
an
yeah, so that's why we couldn't do much because of the all the
yeah,
childcare services being closed down last year and all. So
yeah.
we're still adjusting.
Yeah, just for the sake of to confirm to anyone watching this in the future, this is being recorded in the late March 2021, and we are both in Ireland, and Ireland is still under a very severe lockdown. Just actually with regard to online events, though, and how's that transforming availability or opportunities for like women around the world in terms of like pursuing their careers as speakers in a community basis, let's say.
I think it has its pros and cons. Like the childcare issue, I would say, is something that threw us all into panic mode. For if you have a Zoom event, how would you get a childminder? Because no kid would engage with a childminder on Zoom. So that's not going to work. Even with the online classes, you have to sit with especially the primary school children. They won't sit on online classes on their own. They keep getting distracted. But for women themselves, it would have been hard for me to, if this would have been a physical event, this hour that we are doing right now,
Yeah,
and this would have been the slot 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. It would have been harder for me to attend because it's the near the kids' bedtime, and I would have been, even though my husband can put them to bed, but still, there would have been this constant headache of if they are going to bed, or
yeah,
the
it's
discipline
still
issues
in
and
your
all.
head. I get you. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well,
But
for example, just actually with it, something I feel just referring back to the widespread of chapters around the world, both for Our Ladies and for Wimbledon DS. Does the online event, the new sort of setups, like does that create more opportunities to network and coordinate with each other, like
it
particularly
does.
in places like very remote?
Yep, it does. It has helped, bridge the digital divide because, well, but the problem is, like, Urja had gotten disconnected.
Yeah,
These are issues that would happen a lot even in my country, and this is something our governments need to look into. Digital connectivity, good internet connectivity is a basic human right, and it's about time our governments look into this
yeah,
and ensure it, because even in my country there was a lockdown, and even now in the biggest province of my country, Punjab, all the schooling is gone into online mode, but a lot of the parents are complaining that we keep getting disconnected in our classes because the internet is not so reliable. We don't have as good broadband as you would have in Ireland. So this is something, it's not our fault, it's in no one's hand, but it's something that corporations, governments need to look into, and there's no funding, absolutely no care about it in our part of the world. So while it has been good, it's also something that
it's
has
not
raised some
equal.
concerns.
Yeah, it's not equally distributed. Fair
Yeah.
enough. Well, sorry, that's the sort of like the something to sort of like consider in the future. Um, that's everything I think. Actually, just actually as remarked, I was Urja as you just remarked. Urja got cut off there because, but we thanks for her contribution. She asked loads of questions there. Also, so Arjumand, thanks very much for joining us. I'm going to leave it there.
Mhm.
To everyone at home, thank you for joining us again. We would once again like to thank our sponsors, Jumping Rivers, who are great supporters of our events and so on. But we leave it there. If you have any talks down the line, please get in contact. This is going to be our last webinar of the series. We're going to take a little break and then we'll come back in April to start off the next series of webinars. So I'll leave it there. Thanks very much, Arjumand. Hopefully, Wimbledon, yes, Dublin will be up and running and thriving very soon.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Just one question, actually, just before I go. Just actually with regard to travel and visas and stuff like that. Just what's your take on that?
My take is academics should be allowed, or people in the tech industry should be allowed visa free travel. There have been a lot of arguments around that with my colleagues, and they don't agree, especially from EU, because they think then that would lead to a lot of concerns around security, and somebody could be a terrorist, and how would we ever know? But I don't agree with that.
No,
Mm,
no,
yeah, I've applied for my naturalization just last month. I submitted the application, so hopefully that will be something that, but not every academic can,
yeah,
solve that issue. We do want, it would be great if we can, stay with our families and still be working in academia. We have to give up one thing for the other, so, which is not fair at all.
yeah. To be
If I,
naturalized in Ireland, it's 5 years
yeah,
permanent residency,
yeah,
which is a big commitment,
it
and
is.
particularly as it sort of keeps you in Ireland and sort of like to sort of it might limit your job prospects.
Exactly. Like, my contract is going up, and there are so many academic faculty positions in Netherlands, in Germany. Even somebody from Germany has offered an industry position twice, but I have had to put it down. Google Research is something that I would like to work on in Zurich. They have this whole research group in Zurich. They don't have it in Dublin. In Dublin, there's only the site reliability and the software engineering team, which is okay. But I like doing research, and
Yeah,
I cannot relocate. So yeah.
yeah, yeah. Now that's it. We will leave it there. Thanks very much for that, and thanks for your. That was a really great Q&A. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for all the questions. This is
That was,
something
yeah, yeah. I
nobody has
really
ever
enjoyed it because
asked me.
I
Yeah.
had them all ready for you, so, except that
Yeah.
last one, of course. But there you go. All right, thank you. Bye bye, and thank you, Urja. Sorry, Urja got cut off, but we thanks Urja for her commitment, particularly as it's after midnight where Urja is.
Oh yeah.
And we better let you head off as well. Thank you. Bye bye, folks. See you after Easter.
Bye bye.
Bye
Thank you.
bye. Now I'll stop sharing. Live stream over. Now.